means setting kind of a little gap. So now you've taken in some of the information, right? You see the faces and the names, and then you're going to wait a little bit before you practice again. So set a little interval, and then practice them again. And then set a longer interval, and practice them again. So as I was saying, set a short interval, and then we practice. So here we go. Jim Carr, Minister of Natural Resources. Minister of? Melanie Jolly, Minister of Canadian Heritage. Good. Diana Boutier, Minister of National Revenue. Good. Catherine McKenna, Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Lawrence McCauley, Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food. Good. Man with the money is Scott Bryson, President of the Treasury Board. Our dear friend, Kirsty Duncan, Minister of Science. Bill Morneau, Minister of Finance. Mariam Monsef, Minister of Status of Women. Ralph Goodale, Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. He's having a tough time. I hear some people getting the hyphenated name now too, bringing that in, yeah. Jody Wilson-Raybould, Minister of Justice, Attorney General of Canada. Chrystia Freeland, Minister of Foreign Affairs.
She gets to deal with Trump.
Okay, so one of the things to notice is that retrieval is a very active process. When you just saw the picture there, and I just waited, did it feel effortful, like you're trying to pull something out? Yeah. Right? So it's a really directed process. It's active. You're basically recreating all of those links. So everything that we kind of tried to take in the first time, by trying to pull that information out from your memory, you're kind of trying to recreate and touch as many of those links as possible, right? And pull up all of that information. So that's why, it's also important that you help yourself, because if we said, right, memories are like a net with many points in the network, so the more points, the richer you can make it, the more points of access you have. So the more things you can kind of hit till you get almost to that critical level, where then all of a sudden the information can kind of pop back and be, on your tongue and ready to say. So.
Can your mind also say, okay, this test is done, I don't need to remember that anymore, so let it go?
Yes. Yeah, there's an entire lab at Dalhousie that's devoted to what would be referred to as directed forgetting.
Well, and you have to do that sometimes, right? Because Chrystia Freeland didn't used to be the Minister of Foreign Affairs. She used to do something else, right? So information does change, and you have to forget some things to learn others.
That's right.
The other thing to keep in mind is think about what made it easier to remember some names versus others.
Associations.
Making associations. So when I said, he's in hot water, did that help? Or, what was, you know, when Ryan stumbled over Le Boutillier name, did that also sort of set up a little bit of a significance there?
Yeah, and the translation helped.
And the translation helped, right. So that's all associations. That's creating a richer link, a richer network. And the richness, the richer it is, the easier it's going to be to remember it again.
Yeah.
You know what, with me, I don't have a television. So the only person I knew really at the beginning was Trudeau. And with the faces, I was more intrigued with the faces than I was with the name, because I'd never seen them before. And that, I figure, was my problem.
Yeah.
I need to-
Yeah, well, it depends on what you're focusing on, right?
Yeah.
So you're focusing on the way the faces looked rather than on the names. So you'll remember the faces better than the names, in your case.
Which is kind of awful.
Right,
Well, and I think that's, to be fair, that's common.
yeah.
There's people, you know, and out of context, and when you see them in different places, you know the face,
Yeah.
but the name completely escapes you, all the other information. And part of that just comes from, as humans, we're actually naturally overly interested in, perhaps you could say, or extra interested in faces.
Especially when you meet a lot of people.
Does that have to do with being a visual learner?
Well, it's got to be, I mean, our visual cortex, so the part of the brain that processes vision, takes up a really big chunk. So it's one of our main sources of information is our vision, right?
Well, what I have found is that I learn things when I can see them better than when I just hear them.
Sure. Yeah. And that speaks to the richness that Gail was talking about in terms of the richness of the information. And if you think about your vision being one of the major kind of pieces of information that you take in to process, then it's definitely going to make it a lot easier.
And some people are more heavily in tune with vision than audition. Musicians may find that hearing things are easier to remember than seeing things. Artists may be the opposite.
Yeah.
Chess masters, they can look at a board and see pieces randomly scattered in a game. If they look away, they could tell you where everything is, right? Because they're in tune with the flow of a game. And that's what they pick up on. So a lot of it is what the expertise is that you bring to whatever it is you're trying to learn.
I was just going to say that for me, I mean, apart from Trudeau, it was Bryson because we've seen him a lot in terms of, as somebody who's a resident of Nova Scotia and who is in the news a fair bit and that sort of thing. So that helps, but I guess that's sort of connected with repetition or familiarity in other ways.
Absolutely. That's right.
Yeah, that's true, because I remember when I started university, they told us that use as many senses as you can. The more senses you use when you're studying, the better you'll do on, exams.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the only one I suppose, was interested in was Trudeau, because he was right in the middle. And Bryson, I could identify him, but the rest of the people, even when it was repeated again and again, the names didn't come, the faces didn't mean anything. And I don't see these people, I don't see them enough.
Right.
Right. Face and names.
One of the tricks that people use who are good who have good name memory is when they see faces, they do things to link the face to a name. Because names are fairly arbitrary. They don't have a lot of meaning. I mean, hearing, what the meaning of some of the French names may be helped a little bit, right? But often, what does Ralph mean? Ralph doesn't actually generate, unless you have a really good friend who's Ralph, or you have a really enemy that's Ralph. Ralph doesn't have a lot of emotional attachment to it, right? And there are a lot of people named Ralph, so it's not like it's a unique name to a unique person. So the more you can link someone's face to their name through associations, through word games, through imagery, the easier it's going to be to retrieve that name to the face. But it's an active process, and as Pat says, if she's not interested, then it's not gonna, you're not gonna
It's not gonna
remember
stick.
it. No. And that may be that some people don't really care about remembering people's names, and then this isn't gonna be for them. But you can use this for a lot of other, things too.
Different languages also, because I don't have a hard time remembering French faces and language, but English I find
Yeah.
complicated.
So 2 quick comments or questions left, and then we're gonna move on, I think, there. So start with you, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, also geography and history factors into this. Lawrence Macaulay has been a public figure for give or take 30 years. He's also from a neighboring province which grows potatoes. So those 2 little triggers are going to hit him. I could hit a home run on Lawrence Macaulay.
There you go.
In the dark cave for 3 years.
That's right.
And it looks a little like a potato.
And one last comment or question here?
I have to agree with the lady up front here who spoke and said, like, even after repeating them so many times or seeing them, I couldn't remember. Like, there was 2 or 3 initially up front that held through the whole thing, the rest never picked up. And I think initially, my thought was, what am I gonna use this for in the future? Why am I gonna bog my brain with it? So I have to fight that sometimes, and
It
I
has
did
to.
that right now. I got too much going on up here and just get rid of it.
Yeah?
It has to matter.
So exactly, it has to matter, and this is by way of example. So we can kind of show you this, and maybe this is the example that we use for how you could practice the strategy. But absolutely, now it'll be finding the places that you can apply it. We talk a little bit about that in a minute, okay? But very good point. I mean, it still has to matter at the end of the day, right? And you have to kind of know at least enough of why you might be doing this. How is it going to get you to where you want to go? So now we've had enough of a break, a little bit longer one than the last one, in fact, if I'm not mistaken. So why don't we give this a go? Jim Carr, Minister of Natural Resources. Melanie Jolly, Canadian Heritage. You guys have all said her name enough. I'm going to stop this time. No. Diane Laboussier, Minister of National Revenue. Catherine McKenna, Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Did I hear somebody say Mr. Potato Head? Lawrence Macaulay, Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food. Scott Bryson, President of the Treasury Board. Christy Duncan, Minister of Science. Good. Bill Morneau, Minister of Finance. Marianne Monsef, Minister of Status of Women. Ralph Goodell, Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. Justice, that's right. Jody Wilson-Raybould, Minister of Justice, Attorney General. Freeland, Foreign Affairs, yep, Chrystia Freeland. So, the very apropos question of when am I going to use this? I mean, I guess the first thing is, Did you notice it getting any easier
Yes.
as you went through? So this is
It was
just,
all in the same sequence as well.
it was all in the same sequence as well too.